Welcome to Coach's Corner, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Coach Tripp. Here on Coach's Corner, we try to inspire and educate the mind to think, the heart to feel, and the body to act. Coming up on the show today, got a special guest, Vince Boothe, two-time national champ offensive lineman at Alabama. Vince, thanks for joining the show today.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Appreciate you having me.
Man, that's two offensive linemen at Alabama in a row on my show, man. That's a record for me.
I hear you. Hey, I got to watch Jim's interview. I promise you I will not be as entertaining as Jim.
He is something else, boy, I tell you. Well, my gosh, let's start from the beginning, Vince. You were born and raised in Fairhope, Alabama. And I want you to talk about your mom and dad because we have an amazing history there at Fairhope. Pirate Nation has your dad in 29, mom in the 30s, your older brother Mike and Jim in the 50s, 60s, you in the 70s, and y'all have children in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and grands in the 2010s and 20s. Wow.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. There's been someone in the Fairhope school system since the 20s. And we've covered my mother was there 30s, 40s. She graduated early 40s. Quick story on my mother. She was a cheerleader. I think they had three. And they were playing Pensacola High her senior year. Her and another one of the cheerleaders been asking the coach, could they kick off in the game? And they were beating Pensacola High so bad, he let each one of them kick off once in their cheerleading uniform. So that's when you're really humiliating the other team, when you let the cheerleaders kick off. But we've got all those decades covered, and we've got 4 in school right now at Fairhope.
Who kicked it the furthest?
I have no idea. I didn't ever, once I got those details, I just kind of stopped because I couldn't believe it.
That's a great story, Vince. Oh my gosh. So talk about your older brothers, because I have a little brother theory. I had 3 older brothers that were always beating on me. And, I was playing with bigger, faster, stronger, older kids all the time. And so it makes the little brother better at his sport. And I think a little tougher. Talk about your older brothers.
Well, one of them's 8.5 years older than me. And my middle brother, who passed away a few years ago, he's 5.5 years older than me, and they beat me like a dog just about every day. I agree with you. It makes you a little tougher. Because and my oldest brother, Jim, he ran track in high school, very fast, extremely fast. But he had a heart murmur. And back then they decided, everybody has heart murmurs now. It's not that big a deal. You don't need to play sports. And then my middle brother, he played football a year or two and then decided he wanted to chase the girls more than football. So he went and chased the girls, but they took plenty of time to beat up on their little brother.
According to my high school coach, George O'Leary, I played football and chased the girls, and probably a little too much on the girls' side. Excuse me. Talk about your high school team. You have any teammates go on and play, and how did you get recruited to Alabama?
Well, actually, my high school football coach, W.C. Majors, the stadium in Fairhope is named after him. And I told my wife I was going to tell you this story, and she said I better not. And there's not a word of truth in it. So I'll just go ahead and continue this lie because I've told it for years. But my high school coach became my father-in-law. I dated his youngest daughter all the way through high school. And I've told everybody he made a deal with me. If you'll go to the University of Alabama, if you'll marry my daughter, I'll get you a scholarship to go to the University of Alabama. So I made that deal, and I got 5 years out of it and 47 years in counting a marriage. But my father-in-law was the one who promoted me to the University of Alabama and got me recruited, who then was my high school coach. And yes, I was dating his daughter, but he did all that groundwork for me.
Vince, those are 2 of the best decisions you ever made in your life.
I agree. No doubt about it.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, talk about stepping onto campus at Alabama. I came from a good program, but when I came from upstate New York to Tuscaloosa and saw the varsity come on after 2 back-to-back titles, I came in, my freshman year was 1980, and I went, holy shit, what am I doing here? I was just amazed at the speed and execution. What was your big-time welcome to the big-time college football moment when you stepped on campus?
Oh, that's easy. We had a scrimmage my freshman year in the stadium, and Woodrow Lowe hit me harder than I've ever been hit before or since. I saw stars for minutes. I mean, Woodrow Lowe just tattooed me. And
Gosh,
I'm thinking right then, I'm in over my head.
you had so many All-Americans to go up against. I guess it just made Alabama teams like they are now. Everything's changed. I coached high school for years and didn't go back, and went back a few years ago. Everything's changed, but nothing's changed.
Well, Paul,
It's still, offense and defense compete in practice like we used to compete.
I agree. I didn't answer part of your question a minute ago. My father-in-law helped Doug Faust from Fairhope get a scholarship to Alabama. Donnie Faust, who was 2 years ahead of me, a running back, scholarship to Alabama. Rusty, who was a year behind me, got a scholarship to Alabama. And Bobby Smith, who was a year behind me, went as a walk-on. They gave him a scholarship immediately. So we had some good folks in high school that wound up at Fairhope. There's been some since. So it's been a good group coming from Fairhope going to Alabama.
Was Bobby Smith the defensive back?
Bobby Smith, the defensive back. That's correct.
Wow. The spring DB award is named after him. Is that right?
I'm not sure about that. That's might be Bobby McKinney.
That's amazing.
There as a walk-on, got a scholarship immediately.
Wow. It only took me 4 years to get my scholarship. All right. Great memories on and off the field up at the Capstone. I mean, you won the big Ohio State win in 78, 35-6, was it? And talk about that national championship game. Talk about the Penn State game the following year, the goal line stand. Talk about some of the great moments, because it's hard to remember all the games and all the plays, but what are some of the overwhelming moments that you experienced, Vince?
When I got there as a freshman in 75, and then I got redshirt in 76, and then 77, I'm playing behind Bob Crider and All-American.
All-American, right?
Seattle. He's still living out in Washington. And so the 77 game, we played Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. As you said, we beat them 35-6. I think I got in 3 or 4 plays when the game was over. Coach Bryant got everybody in for a few plays. And probably my best memory from that game is after the game, David Sadler, who's passed away now, is being interviewed. And they asked him what the difference in the game was. And he said, the kicking game. And the reporter said, the kicking game, you beat them 35-6. He said, I know, we kicked their ass. That's the best comment I've ever heard.
Oh, my gosh. You played with some great ones, too, next to Jim Bunch. And talk about how great Dwight Stevenson was. Did you was he there when you got there?
Actually, Dwight and Jim came in a year later, and Mike Brock. So, Buddy Adelette and I came in together as freshmen. We were freshman roommates. We're still best of friends. Mike Brock came as a walk-on and earned a scholarship. Dwight came as a defensive end, and Jim came a year later and got a chance to start that freshman year. So Jim started a lot of games his freshman year. Dwight and Jim started all the games their sophomore year. And then going into our junior season, it became Buddy Adelette at left tackle, Mike Brock left guard, Dwight at center, I was at right guard, and Jim Bunch was at right tackle. Now, I've told Buddy over the years, Brock didn't do him any good because I made the 2 guys on each side of me All-Americans, and Brock didn't help Buddy become an All-American. But we had a great line, and if you get to play with Dwight Stevenson, it's just as good as it gets. He's the best center, in my opinion, to ever play the game. It's an honor to play by him. More importantly, he's one of the nicest, humblest human beings you ever met in your life.
Wow, what a great tribute, Vince, to him. Yeah, I agree with you. He was one of the greatest centers of all time, including the NFL. And you just had so many All-Americans to learn from. It was just almost like a cycle. Bama they got so many good players I remember learning behind All-American Tommy Wilcox, a strong safety position. I learned how to play corner from Jeremiah Castile, another just All-Americans all over the place, and it just keeps feeding, that team. Bama might have had the best two offensive linemen that ever played the game. We just talked about Dwight Stevenson, but John Hanna was probably the best tackle to ever play. I know you didn't play with him, but did you get stories from the coaches, or did you get any ever talk to John?
I've seen John at a few functions. His youngest brother, David, was a freshman when I came in together.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was there, and Charlie was already on the team at that time. So, you had John and Charlie and then David. And so I've seen him some, but I can tell you, Coach Pyle, our offensive line coach, he brought out the Tennessee film of when John was there, when they threw the 80-yard touchdown to Wayne Wheeler on the first play of the game. And he preached all week about how those guys sold the run and knocked everybody 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, and that's how you're supposed to pass block. It's a little different nowadays. And so he showed us that film all week long before our senior year against Tennessee. So we got to watch a lot of John playing and the critique. He was a special athlete, no doubt about it.
Oh, my gosh. Some of your other teammates, they were just unbelievable. Maybe Stedman Shealy. Talk a little bit about Stedman and Major Ogilvy. That those two were special in those national championship years too.
Well, Stedman came in and got hurt there his junior year, I think, had his knee surgery and then rehabbed and came back and had a great senior year and good campaign as our quarterback. And Major, undersized, maybe a little under speed, and he would outmove you, outrun you, out-hustle you, and carry you for a first down if he had to. I'd get in the huddle with Major right now. I'd probably get killed, but I'd get in there and block for him because he's going to give it his all.
I was talking a little bit with Jim Bunch about this. Anywhere I ever played, high school, college, pros, wherever I played, the offensive linemen were so close, and probably the closest knit position group. And I think that has a lot to do with the no headlines, and you're right next to each other on every single play where everybody else is spread out. And you guys are just on top. You have to be the smartest guys on the field. Offensive line group does. Does all that contribute to being just a tight-knit group forever?
I think so. Paul, I've always had a theory. Now, I would say this does not apply to Dwight Stevenson, but I've always had a theory. To be an offensive lineman, you need to be an inch or two shorter than the defensive lineman. Mm-hmm. You need to be a few tenths of a second slower in the 40-yard dash. You need to be a little bit weaker. You need to be a lot smarter. And by the way, when we run the sweep, we want you to beat the running back to the corner and do that. And, and then we're going to leave you in the game for run plays and pass plays while the defense is using their run defensive linemen, their pass defensive linemen. They're all fresh. So I think part of that builds to the bond of you're just stuck out there and you're together, and you got to look each other in the eye and trust each other. And I think it makes a more special bond than any group on the field. Of course, I'm biased because I was an offensive lineman, but this group is still close. Those 5 people and everyone that was around us at that time are all still good, close friends.
Plus, you got flack from the other position groups, you're non-athletes, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, they make a lot of fun of you. Now, however, our running backs, they were a great group. They tried to pass the credit along and did what they supposed to do. And you gotta have an ego to play football anyway, but you got to hide it if you're an offensive lineman. You got to put it aside. You're going to hear your name called if you jump off sides.
Or a holding penalty.
Yeah.
Which could be a drive killer. Oh, my gosh. Oh, Bama had a great 10-year series, home and away with Penn State. Well, I remember going up there and playing some battles, and I remember them coming to Birmingham and playing battles. That Penn State game, is it true that who was it? Was it Marty Lyons or somebody said to Chuck Fusina, you got about a foot, you better pass? Is that a true story?
I wasn't out there, because I was on offense.
But you must have heard it.
Yes, I do believe that's true. That's probably the most brutal football game I ever played in. I would say it's the only game that ever raised to the level of the toughness of a practice scrimmage, because we always practice harder than the games were. But that Penn State game was actually a brutal game. You got the two co-defensive players at the game, and Matt Miller, or the Nation, and Matt Miller and Bruce Clark playing defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure we blocked either one of them yet, but we tied them up long enough we got 14 points on the board. But
right,
that was a physical football game. And one thing I remember about that game, at halftime, they interviewed Coach Bryant, and they asked him about the second half, and we were exhausted, offensive line. I know I was. And he said, I'm worried about my offensive line. They're tired. I'm wondering, when I watch it on film later on, how did he know that? But he knew.
Gosh.
He knew we were tired.
Because he was brilliant. He was brilliant at recognizing, seeing stuff that other people couldn't see, like hearts. He could measure a kid's heart better than anybody I've ever met in my life.
I agree.
And yeah, gosh, you talk about I want to talk about that, because when I coached high school, I was adamant that practices were harder than games. And I couldn't always get the head coach on board with me sometimes. But my high school coach, George O'Leary, was a firm believer in that, and that's why we won big in high school. And Coach Bryant was a big believer in making practices harder than games. But there's still, I see that out there. You must see that. You're still active with your kids and grandkids, and you must see sometimes the high school coaches just, I don't know. It's just changed a discipline or something, but coaches don't want to take it easy. I know with the concussion and everything, they've limited contact and everything, but yeah, that was a firm staple in Coach Bryant's philosophy, is to practice hard, and that way you'll know who's going to be with you in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, there's no, Coach Bryant's got that famous line, I make my practice hard because the player's going to quit. I want him to quit practice, not a game. And he lived up to that. Trust me. He made it very hard. You were there. You understand how difficult those were. But warm-ups were you talked to Buddy Idlett. After warm-ups at a game, we were exhausted. We had to go in and catch our breath. Warm-ups were tougher than the game, and we didn't understand it at the time. But the whole theory was everything you've done to prepare will be harder than what we're asking you to do. And,
right.
And so with a great outcome.
Made sense. Makes sense. Great assistant coaches. Just unbelievable. Ken Donahue was just a staple, just an old Tennessee, he's a military guy, boxed in the Navy, and I think that's why we had a boxing match in 1980 or 81 between Larry Roberts and Brent Sewell at the end of practice. Coach Bryant made him go a bunch of rounds. We didn't have another fight the rest of the year, Vince, after that one. That was his last year too, so he didn't mellow that much.
Yeah.
I mean, he did mellow, quite a bit from the earlier days, but he was still tough. Sylvester Croom, Mel Moore, Dee Powell. Talk a little bit about all those legends.
Well, Coach Powell's offensive line coach. I got the privilege to speak on behalf of the former players at Coach Powell's funeral. And when preparing for that, I realized a couple things. My father was in the Marines. My high school coach, who became my father-in-law, was in the Army. Coach Powell was in the Air Force. Coach Bryant was in the Navy. We had all of that covered. So we had an overload of discipline all the way through. But Coach Powell was one of the Junction boys. So, he was tough. And he had mellowed a little bit, but he was still tough.
Right.
Coach Donahue, the man didn't drink a Coke. The man never cussed. Gosh darn it, was his biggest cuss word. But I've never seen anybody study film. And I've told hundreds of people, Coach Donahue while you're looking at your chart to see what you do on 3rd and 7 on your left hash mark in the first quarter, he already knows because he's watched so many films. So he's already called the defense, and he's foaming at the mouth waiting for you to run the play because he's already got it stopped. And he was that dedicated. Sylvester Froome was one of the last cuts from the Saints in 75. So he came back as a grad assistant my freshman year. And of course, his great year, and went to Mississippi State, became head coach and first class individual. His younger brother, Kelvin, who's, probably one of the more prominent preachers in Tuscaloosa, was a freshman with us also. We had an unbelievable freshman class with Kelvin Croom, Tony Nathan, Jeff Rutledge, Marty Lyons, Barry Krause, Buddy Adelette. We just Steve Whitman. We just had a phenomenal freshman class.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Rich Wingo and Steve Whitman. Oh my gosh, those two. I try to avoid them in the locker room, man. It was my first night. I think I went to the Noose and had a beer because I was comfortable there, and I saw them two button heads at the bar, and I got a dip from them, and I started dipping that day. I didn't want to say no because I didn't even want to open my mouth because they would have caught my Yankee accent. And I didn't want no part of that, what they were doing. Gosh, Bama football, it's still good. Coach Saban, I had Coach Mel Moore on my radio show years ago before he passed away. And Vince, he talked about the similarities of Coach Bryant and Coach Saban. And, he noticed that they didn't look alike, walk alike, talk alike, or anything like that. But between the ears, they're almost identical. I'd have to agree to some respects, but I do want to call out and want to commend you, Vince, on the courage that it took for you to speak out on the injustice being done to that by the athletic department, putting football lettermen well into their 60s into their seats of our own stadium in the end zone, the upper deck. Coach Bryant would roll over in his grave. Coach Saban needs to make this wrong or right. You talked about tradition, quote, tradition, pride, humility, class, respect, all of that, which Coach Bryant was rightly insisted that we exhibit, have all been cast aside by the athletic department that he himself built into a dynasty, unquote. Well said, Vince. On top of that, Coach Bryant loved kids and older people. So to discriminate against them, I know he would not approve. Why has money gotten so involved in not tradition, pride, humility, class, and respect?
That's a great question. I wish I could find an answer to that. I understand the need for money to have a successful program. We have an abundance of money at the University of Alabama, and I think what concerns me more about where our seats are is not the issue. Is they took that cutoff year, and they choose how many they put in the lower bowl and how many put in the upper bowl. But when they put us in the upper bowl, they didn't put us in one section. They put us across 7 different sections in the end zone. Where this year, Jim and Leslie are sitting behind me, and Vince Cal and his wife are sitting next to us, and Buddy Adelette and I get our tickets together every year. So there's actually 4 football players in that one section, but that's the most it's been in one section since we got moved to the upper deck. And I can only see it as money. I guess that's what it is. And you got to have it, and you got to keep up with the Joneses of having the best facilities and all that. But University of Alabama has a lot of money, and that bond will not be broken whether we're sitting beside each other or not. We go, most A Club members go for the A Club function prior to instead of the ball game itself, because we won't see each other.
Wow, it's a shame. It's a shame. We got you're one of Bama's finest. You're on the football collection card list, deservedly so. I have no idea why I'm on there, but I still get them in the mail once in a while. Do you still get cards?
I signed one last week and sent it to a guy. It's unbelievable to me. Now, when you get the stack of 10, somebody's trying to get a book together and sell them. But when you get the one, you think that one's probably legit. And I signed one last week. I signed it Sunday, actually, and put it in the mail. My wife put it in the mail on Monday.
Wow, Vince, man, what an honor talking to you. We're going to have to do it again soon.
All right. Sounds great. I appreciate you having me. Enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate your stories. And we'll do it again and tell more Alabama stories. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Have a great day.
You too, buddy. Thanks, Vince. Wow, Vince Boothe, man. Whenever you can hear more stories about the Bama tradition and all of great years and great coaches that were there, you take advantage of it. Hope everybody has a great sports weekend. Stay tuned for these messages. Without these great sponsors, this just wouldn't be possible. Thanks so much, Hill Kelly Dodge, Chrysler Jeep Ram, Seiler Agency, Ronnie's Car Wash, Step One, Pensacola Glass, State Farm, Cordova Lanes, Arbitrium, Beck, Bama Club, all those Badlands, all those great sponsors. This one happened. Have a great sports weekend, everybody. Roll Tide.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Step One works so hard to get you in the perfect car. Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step One Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step One supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step One Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.
75 years of service and high-tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High-tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple pane of brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.